Welcome to the Social Media Takeaway. I'm your host, Louise McDonnell, and this is the show for business people who want to learn how to use social media as a sales and marketing tool. If you enjoy the show, please make sure that you subscribe and give us a good 5-star review. And if there's something in the show that you think would resonate with any of your friends, please make sure that you share it with them. So today, I'm delighted to be joined by Steve Donnellan. Steve is an experienced trainer, sales coach, and the founder of Steve Donnellan Consulting and Soaring Sales Academy. Steve has a passion for helping business owners overcome their challenges around sales by applying proven strategies learned and developed through 35 years of sales and marketing experience. He shares that you don't have to be an extrovert to succeed at sales. You're very welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks very much, Louise.
I always say about sales that some people would rather stick a pin in their eye. I used to work with a girl and she'd say, ask me to do anything, but I will rather stick a pin in my eye than pick up the phone call and make a sales call. So I always think with sales that, people either graduate towards it or they absolutely hate it. And I know for lots of business people and coaches, consultants running their own businesses, you have to do the sales. If you don't have sales, you don't have business. So I'm really intrigued about the subject. And I'd love to, first of all, maybe start by hearing about your journey.
Okay. Yeah. Funnily enough, I didn't intend to sort of end up in sales. I started off in marketing and I worked in marketing for close to 10 years and my position was made redundant. And I looked, and I've been in working for Kawasaki motorcycles for 10 years. So when I looked for a new job, I didn't find a job in marketing, but I ended up in sales. And it was disastrous because I didn't have any sales training and I had no idea of what I was doing. And so I got out of sales for a little bit and I went away and I studied and I thought, there's got to be something more to this sales gig. And I studied, read some books and put myself back out there. But I got a job that was sales and marketing manager for a motorcycle magazine. So it was an industry that I knew and I was passionate about, but I knew who the customer was because I'd been the customer, in fact. So I was able to create a new message about who we were, about the value that we had and communicate that clearly to the target market. And lo and behold, I had great success and took the magazine sales from $300,000 per annum to over $1 million per annum in just under 2 years. So this, amazing success. And it was all down to this finding this sales strategy and applying it.
And actually, even before sales, like you touched on it there, like even the messaging, even before you sell, even to get somebody's attention through persuasive messaging. And people don't pay enough attention to that. Would you agree?
Yes. And it comes back to understanding your value as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And so those sort of three things combined: understanding the customer, understanding the value that you provide.
Yeah.
And from the customer's perspective. And putting that in concise messaging.
And so tell me, let's break that down a little bit more. So let's talk about understanding the customer. So what do you do or how do you advise people to really understand their customers?
Yes. Okay. And this applies to actual sales when you are having a conversation. And that's the thing. Have a conversation. Ask questions. Rather than, as I say, show and tell doesn't sell. Okay. A lot of people are very happy talking about their product or their service, because they know a lot. They know a lot about what they do. And so they'll start by telling people about what they do, but that doesn't resonate.
I'm going to jump in there as well. I actually think that another reason that people do that is that they're probably a little bit nervous.
Yeah, because they don't have a sales strategy and they haven't thought about the questions that they're going to ask in order to have a conversation. But that's all you need to do. Have a conversation first, understand the customer, get to know what's going on in their world. Then you can figure out if you've got something that's going to help them. Yeah. And so that's where it starts.
So for someone tuning in here who really wants to have those really meaningful conversations or strategic conversations, what advice would you give them? What questions should they ask?
Well, what's happening in your business right now? What are you focusing on? What's causing you issues in your business? And what challenges have you got? And that's because ultimately everybody's got challenges in their business in some way. If they tell you they haven't, they're doing exceptionally well, or they're telling a fib. So if you can structure the conversation in a way where you get to some challenges, then you can understand where you can help them. But then again, I've also been in situations where I ask the question, tell me about the problems you have with XYZ. They go, we don't have any problems.
Okay.
Because they're not sort of thinking about their problems. But if you say, I've been working with customers in this area and they've been telling me that they have this problem and they have this problem, or this problem, does that ever apply to you? Then you start to get people say, yeah, I have that problem. So if you can talk about the sort of problems that your customers have in that conversation, it's a bit of a conversation starter, just to give them some insight into what you do and how you help people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. One of the things that you've done here, I know we had a conversation earlier on, is to understand pain points. Now, I always say, I don't know about you, but I always say that sometimes people are aware of their customers' problems, but they're not necessarily tuning into their pain. And I believe the problem and the pain are two different things. So,
Yeah,
so the problem is like what they define the problem to be, and the pain is how it affects them every day.
exactly.
And I think if you can talk somebody's language, if you can remind them about, did you find this or this scenario, or has this happened to you? It tends to be more meaningful. What do you think about that?
Yeah, if you can get to the pain behind the problem, say, for instance, people say, that they have this problem in their business. They need to be able to print a label in a certain way or something, and it's not working for them. Okay, so that's the problem. And what does that mean for you on a day-to-day basis? Okay, what impact does that have on the rest of the business? And they might say, oh, well, it means that, things aren't done in the right sort of time frame, and it puts pressure on this part of the business. And how does that make you feel? What's the feeling behind it? Yeah. And this is something that, this is how I work with customers, is to create the question database sort of thing and coach them around having those conversations and being comfortable with going a little bit deeper and just taking a breath, pause for a bit, listen. You have to really be in tune with the conversation. You have to be present and be able to reflect. And it's no problem just taking a moment and just taking it in and then coming back with a response.
Brilliant. So the first thing you say to do is to understand the client's problems, pain points. Then you also mentioned about knowing the true value of what you provide. So this is kind of outcome-based, I would call it outcome-based marketing. Yeah. And again, it's a huge area that people don't think about or put enough time and effort into truly understanding the value they provide. What kind of advice do you offer there in that area then, Steve?
Okay, well, something that I coach clients on is, building a value database. It's understanding value that you provide, okay? Because people are very good at providing value and not actually recognizing it and not explaining what they do as well. They'll provide a quote for something and it's like one line, services, okay? But in fact, there's a whole scope of detail that goes into that. And I say to people, don't be afraid about explaining exactly the process behind what you do, okay? Because that's all value. That's all added value that you're providing. So be open about what it is that you do, how you provide the value, but then look at the value from the customer's perspective and understand, what does it mean to them? What does it mean when you provide a solution, and how does it impact their lives? And people, again, they don't go deep enough into understanding the value, because when you understand the deep value that you provide in somebody's life, not just to their business, but how do you help the person, then it gives you more confidence, and that helps you have the conversation around sales. It's when you know exactly what it is that you do. And it's like all of a sudden, I had a conversation with somebody just recently doing some coaching around their business. I'm not sure that you understand the full value of what you do. The product that you provide has the capacity to change people's lives. And we had a bit of a chat around that. And they went, yeah, actually, you know what? I haven't really looked at it that way before.
Yeah.
And so just understanding that you can actually provide that sort of impact on people, it builds your confidence.
Yeah, it does. Because another thing that I would find that a lot of business owners, particularly when they're starting out, I don't know if you find this, Steve, you could have somebody who worked in an organization, worked in a big corporate organization for years, and were extremely confident in what they did within that role. And then I can think of one example. I have many, but one sticks out in my mind. This girl, and she made millions for the company that she was working in. And then when she started working for herself, what will I charge?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but look at the outcome. Look at what you're going to do for whatever business you work with. And that's the outcome, and the value that you can bring to them is absolutely massive. So yeah, exactly. And so you were saying having great products and services alone doesn't lead to sales without the right strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Because in that situation, a lot of people will come from a corporate role and launch their own business, have a great product, and open the doors and expect it to fly off the shelves. No, it doesn't quite work like that, does it? No. Because, like you say, we have this reservation about putting ourselves out there. If you're a business owner, okay, it's personal. Yeah. And so when you've got a big brand behind you and, somebody else is doing the marketing and there's maybe even a sales department taking care of the sales, you can represent the company because you've got some impact behind you. But when you're on your own, you're naked out there on your own. And so people don't want to be seen. So therefore, yeah, people need to have some strategy behind what it is that they're doing. And like I said, having a database of questions, understanding the value and being able to put that into clear and concise messaging all helps. Or it's all part of social media strategy. You've got to have one of those as well.
In fact, the messaging needs to be consistent across everything you do.
Yes.
If you're saying one thing on your website and another thing on your social media, or you're not even on social media, and another thing when you're meeting people. I know we're going to get to social media, but I know you give advice to people that are, let's say, maybe at exhibitions or trade shows. You're saying the number one reason why business owners fail to engage with customers at exhibition and trades shows is the lack of a sales strategy. So again, like that, if somebody's at a trade show and exhibition, what advice would you give them?
Show and tell doesn't sell.
Love that.
So again, I mentioned that before. It's the same thing, it's a sales situation. And people tend to think, I've got this person's attention, this person has stopped, they've shown some interest, and I've got their attention for a very short space of time. So I better tell them everything. Yeah. And so you'll launch into a presentation and it doesn't connect because people don't see how it impacts them. It's too general. It's everything. But, they may be interested in one particular feature, or they might have another problem altogether that this product isn't going to solve. So people in that exhibitions and trade shows sort of space, they'll just tell people about their stuff, but people don't care about what you do. They only care about how you help them. So again, dial it back, flip the script and have a conversation. Ask the question, say, what brought you to the exhibition today? Was there anything in particular that you came here to see? Okay, so general icebreaker question and an open question, not something that's going to get a yes or no answer, something that they have to answer. And so have a conversation, find out what's going on for them. What did they come here to see? Okay, and what caused that? And so if they've stopped to talk to you, there must be something there that's attracted them, but you don't know what it is. So have the conversation, ask them some questions, and then get a feel for where they're at. And this applies in a sales conversation as well. And to transition, because this is somewhere where people sort of trip up, where they get stuck. They don't want to be salesy. They don't want to impose. You can say something like, okay, well, I've got a bit of an understanding of what it is that you're looking for. Would you like to hear about how our product might be able to help you? What are you going to say? You say, yeah, of course. So you can ask a question. Is it okay if I talk about how, our product can help you? Is that okay? Yeah. They go, yeah, they want to know all of a sudden because you've taken the time to find out a little bit about them. And now you can talk about your product or service as it relates to the problem that they've just told you about. Now you've narrowed the focus. Rather than talking about everything, you've narrowed it down to what's important to them, how you can help them. Yeah.
Okay, and so you've had that conversation now. You've listened to their problems and their pains, and you've asked them for the invitation to present the solution, which should be not about just a list of what you do, but it should be based on the outcome for the client and what their service or product is going to do for them. What's the next stage then, Steve?
Well, I guess that's the question. So, Louise, we've talked about how this can help you, and you mentioned how this problem was going on. You don't want that to continue for, another 6 months. So if this solution can actually solve what we're talking about, what would you see as being the next steps here? What would you like to do?
So you put it back on. You put it back on.
I'd like to go ahead, or I'd like a demonstration at home, or whatever the case may be. So again, ask them, what do you see as the next steps?
Very good. And how do you handle objections then, Steve?
Well, there's a couple of ways. A good way of handling objections, objections, typically there's only about 5 or 6 common objections that come up. And you know what they are as well. Here's the thing, you know what the objections are. So have you prepared answers in advance for your objections? Not many people do, okay? But as part of a sales strategy, this is what you will do. You'll prepare objections in advance. And so you've got answers ready to go. You might have rehearsed them a little bit. So then you can answer some objections as they come up. But another way of handling objections is if there's a common objection, an objection that comes up in every sales presentation, put it into the presentation and answer it in advance. Like, the most expensive solution in the marketplace. And you could say, Some people find our solution is more expensive. Some people say that our solution is more expensive than our competitors. And there's a reason for that, because X, Y, Z. And so you can put it into the presentation. And so it answers the objection before it even comes up. Be upfront with these sort of things. And when you do get an objection, you can ask a question. Don't answer the objection straight away. Ask a question to get to what's the real reason behind the objection, because the first objection isn't always the real objection. So you have to dig deeper. Yeah. So it might be, okay, well, that's a really good point. Can you tell me why that's important for you? Something along those lines. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And so then how do you bring that sales meeting to its natural conclusion? Do you just get to the point where either you ask for the business or you make a plan to move
Yeah.
it to the next stage?
So you've talked about the next steps. You might have gone through some objections. And again, okay, so Louise, we talked about all the different aspects of the solution, and we've talked about how this is going to help you solve this problem. And you said that problem is keeping you up at night. And you know how important sleep is. So given that this product is going to solve that problem, it's going to help you sleep better. How do you want to go ahead? How do you want to proceed? When would you like to have this solution in place? So there's different ways you can do a soft sort of close. When would you like to see this solution in place?
Mhm.
Or where's your checkbook? Or we don't have there's a checkbook anymore. Where's your card? Yeah. Would you like to place a deposit? You know, it's up to you. And you get the feeling from the situation. If somebody's, really keen to go, okay, let's take a deposit.
Very good, very good. What about then social media? How would you apply all of your expertise in sales? And like the people that are tuning in here, this is the Social Media Takeaway podcast. So what advice would you give them about applying traditional sales tactics to social media?
Okay, well, people make purchase. Well, there is a percentage, 95% and this is scientifically proven, 95% of purchasing decisions are made subconsciously. Okay. Because if you've ever seen Simek's YouTube video, Start With Why,
Mhm.
yeah, it explains it really well. The limbic brain, yeah, exactly the same thing. We make purchasing decisions on an emotional level, and then we rationalize it with facts and figures. So you have to engage with people's emotions.
Mhm.
And one way to do that is with stories. As you know, in marketing, social media, stories can be really important. And it can be customer stories. It can be, testimonials. It can be your own story about how you started your business. And these can be, used in different ways. But facts tell and stories sell.
Yeah,
It's the
so
same.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So be engaged with, try to create some emotional engagement in your social media content and try to tap into that area of us.
Human
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. The human connection. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree. Yes. I actually think, Steve, as things have moved on in social media, I suppose I've been in the social media game 15 years now. So, there was a time where it was the glossy, everything had to look really professional and glossy. I think it's flipped now, and that the emotional hook is more important now than ever. And that creating that connection. So, again, talking about the pain rather than the problem, creating that human connection with somebody so that they know, like, and trust you, because they're more likely to want to do business with you if they,
Yeah.
if they know you, It's-
Yeah. Because it's still the same principles apply in, people don't care about what you do. So if you're explaining, in your social media, what it is that you do, it doesn't resonate. It's people want to know, and they want to know quickly, how can you help me?
It's not what you do, it's what you do for them.
Yeah, if you can talk about the problems that your customers have and the problems that you help them with, that's when they connect. Because, again, our ancient brain is always looking for opportunities and threats. That's how we're wired. We're always looking out for, things that can help us or things that can harm us. I think that we're actually a little bit skewed towards looking for things that can harm us. We're always on the lookout for problems. And so when you talk about the problems people have that you can help, then they see themselves in that. And that's when they stop. It will stop the scroll. When they see themselves in a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And the hard sell doesn't work on social media.
No.
No, it's really
No.
about forming relationships first. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we connected over LinkedIn, and we connected through, connecting, not just posts, but, actually having a conversation from comments, maybe a couple of DMs and that. So it's about making connections.
It's
Yeah.
so true. And I know two things to add to that. Like I put up a post earlier on in the week. I don't even remember which one it was. And when somebody comments, it's massive because you get a notification. Oh, you're like, oh, who commented? And it was somebody going, oh, if you need any help with that, we have a solution that does da 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 da. And I'm like, go away, like
Mhm.
it's your first time interacting with me. I'm not even going to read it.
Yeah.
So just that hard sell. Whereas if they had just connected and said, oh yeah, that's a great approach, or you would have had more of a conversation before
Yeah.
trying to sell to somebody who doesn't know you from
Yeah.
Adam. And the other thing is I was at actually a business networking event this morning. And I was at the same event this time last year. And I connected with a few people on LinkedIn actually following the event. As I walked into the event this year, like a lot of the same faces were there, but the only names that I knew off the top of my tongue were the people I connected with on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
there's the whole benefit of social media, is that you're not just meeting once a year, you're meeting once a week, and you know their name and you know what they're doing and you know what's happening in their lives and in their work, connected with them. So there's the true value of social media. Okay, so any other trends or things that you see happening or changing over time, or is it always the same, Steve?
The same things do come up when I'm speaking with business owners, and the not wanting to be salesy, not want to impose on people, asking them to buy sort of thing. It is so common. And that's why the exhibition sort of work is so interesting, because 95% of business owners are stuck in that pattern of show and tell, where they'll tell you everything and ask you nothing. Literally, they will talk to you for 5-10 minutes and not ask you a question.
Mm.
And that's somewhere where I'm actively sort of working. I'm doing some research at the moment, speaking to a lot of business owners, and really getting inside their heads and understanding where they're at and what problems does this lack of a strategy have, and what are their pain points around, sort of exhibition and trade shows.
And are you using any AI tools or recommending any AI tools, Steve?
Well, Louise, being a listener to your podcast, there was an episode a few months ago that you did on AI. If I haven't told you about that, then I'm terribly remiss. No, I did. I commented at least on the post at the time. I went back and I put a comment. I said, "Oh, this is unreal. This is fantastic." So yeah, what you shared in that podcast changed things for me. Yeah.
Oh, great. That's so nice. Yeah. Actually, what I started to do was, I don't know if you listened to the podcast episode that I had with Joseph McGuire about the face fact.
Yes.
I was actually doing, so Joseph was
Yeah.
saying in his, like, I just found that fascinating. And he was
Yeah.
saying that if you're doing a sales pitch and if somebody sits back in their seat and smiles, then they see it as entertainment and they're not as
Yeah.
interested. But if
Yeah.
somebody's kind of tilting their heads or touching their face, or like, so,
Yeah.
and they're really listening, or they sit forward, then they're engaging.
Yep.
So about 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a workshop of people, and at the end of the workshop, I was pitching them one of my coaching programs. And there was a lady in the workshop that I knew, she came on, I knew she wouldn't be interested, but she was welcome to come on the workshop anyhow. But as I started to do the pitch, she sat back in her seat and started smiling. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, but that's okay. So I knew then to focus on other people who were listening and tilting their heads.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So
No, yeah,
that's amazing.
that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then another thing then somebody else had said to me is that I downloaded the transcript from, if you start recording your sales conversations with people, and then download the transcript and put it up to ChatGPT and say, how did I do?
Yeah.
And it'll tell you.
Yes. Haven't done that, but yeah.
Yeah, a good thing to do, because it can always be getting better. And you probably find this as well. Like, I think a lot of this with people not being able to sell is confidence, but also their nerves, that they're in a situation, they maybe have to make it work, or they're not that comfortable themselves. And sometimes you'll talk too much when you're nervous.
Absolutely. Sales is their lifeblood. If they're not selling, they don't have a business. It's important that people are wary of it. They're wary of me because they think that, I've got to keep this guy at arm's length because I can't let him start selling to me. I'm just, I get it. And so but again, I like to think of myself as not salesy. I'm very introverted naturally. And, I was just used to be so self-conscious. Now I have sort of got over that to a great extent. And because of my experience, I've decided that I have to put myself out there, because I've got something of value, because I've done the work. I know what value I have, and I know the value that it can bring to people's lives, not just their business, but their lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if they can sleep better at night, because they've solved those problems, they've got the sales in, they're not under as much pressure. Like that transforms somebody's life and it transforms everybody else's life in the office.
And yeah, a whole string of people. So yeah, it is important. So that's why I decided to go down this route, because I sort of had cracked the code, but it took years of work. You know, as you said in the introduction, 35 years of sales and marketing experience. Here's the thing. I was doing it wrong for probably 30 of those years.
And that's okay too.
Still got some success, but
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I went back to school and started to really figure it out. Yeah.
I know. Look, so the key takeaways from today is that there is a process when you're selling.
People don't care about what you do.
Oh yeah,
They
definitely
only
what you
care
can,
about, yeah,
they care what you
how
can
you
do
can
for
help.
them.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And it's more about listening than speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you need any help with your selling, how can people find you, Steve?
Okay. The website is soaringsales.com, and it's soaring-sales.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing all your advice. I know I've picked up lots of tidbits here today. I definitely would be guilty of probably talking too much and not listening, so I'm going to do that more. And again, how can people find you on social media?
Okay. LinkedIn is the place. Steve Donnellan, sales coach.
Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Louise.
That's it, everyone. That's another episode of the Social Media Takeaway. If you have some feedback, make sure that you tag us on social media. You'll find me under Sell on Social M, or on LinkedIn, you'll find me under Louise MacDonald. I'd love to hear your feedback and what you thought about the show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And if you know anyone who may be interested, be sure to share the show with them too. Thanks, everyone.